I'm with Elana Heideman, and we're talking about the Jewish holiday of Shavuot in the light of global anti-Semitism. Now, Elana, what is Shavuot?
Hi. Well, Shavuot is a holiday that has many different meanings to it. And the translation of the term is actually weeks. It is the festival of weeks, where we honor the weeks that were counted between the exodus of Egypt and the Jewish people receiving their freedom from slavery until the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, which is believed to have happened on the eve of Shavuot. So it's the weeks that are counted, and they're counted in a very special way. They're counted with something that is called the Omer, where every single day Jewish men are required, Jewish women are welcome to also do it, but are required to count the days, because it is such a spiritual buildup between the release of freedom, the journey through the desert, and the receiving of the Torah on Shavuot, that we replicate that spiritual process today. So that is one of the interpretations of Shavuot. And a second interpretation is actually as the harvest festival. And in the time of the temple, the Jewish citizens would come and they would bring their very first fruits, called the bikurim. They would bring their very first fruits to the temple as a gift to Hashem. So we honor this holiday in both of those ways. The giving of the Torah, we stay up all night learning Torah, young and old alike. We fill the day with Torah. And we fill the day also with many different symbols from the Torah and celebrating also its agricultural significance for our people.
Now, the Jews were given the law, and it's a very good way to conduct and live your life. Today, many people hate the Jews. Do you think this is a spiritual hatred because of what God has done? He's given the Jews the law. He's the apple of their eyes. He's made a promise to them that I will give you this land as an eternal covenant. Do you think that's why so many people hate the Jews and there is anti-Semitism today?
I think that it is confusion over all of those things that is the fuel for the Jewish hatred. I think that it isn't necessarily that people hate the Jews for those elements of individuality, but rather that they see it as examples of this other, and the Jew is the eternal other. And so they see this expression of spirituality, this ultimate faith in God. And yes, this being chosen. Now let's examine this for 1 second, though, because it is often not only mistranslated, but it is misinterpreted. The idea of the Jews being chosen to receive the Torah doesn't mean that it was only originally for the Jews. God actually, we know, offered to all other peoples, and they refused because the Torah is filled with laws, 613 laws to be precise. And so who wants to take on a spiritual observance that involves so much restriction, so much guidance? It's a very big burden to follow Jewish law. But the Jewish nation looked to God and said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will hear, we will listen. Interesting look at what happens there, that it is that we will do it and then we will understand why we are doing it, but that the acts alone are essential to what it means to be a Jew, to be a believer in God, to be a recipient of the Torah and the Ten Commandments. Because yes, Judaism is about doing. Now, does that fuel that hatred? Yes, many times it does, because the Jewish sense of wanting to accomplish and to do and to bring good to the world for the sake of God and for the sake of our holiness as the human race that God created, this often arouses for many people a resentment, sometimes even a jealousy or a fear. But the idea that no matter what, there is always within the workings of Jewish life, there is a reason for somebody to nitpick about why they decide that's the reason they don't like the Jews. I will emphasize that Shavuot has often been a time for persecution against the Jews, when anti-Semites throughout history have chosen this holiday as a topic to undermine the legitimacy of the Jewish people, because it was on Mount Sinai. This was when the Jewish nation became a people. When we stood together, as it says in the Torah, Am echad, Ke'am echad im lev echad. We were like one man with one heart. That was the sense of unity that was felt on Mount Sinai. And so there are many conspiratorial narratives that have developed around Jewish laws and Jewish ethics. And do they pose a threat to other people? And what about this Jewish unity? This Jewish unity, that's a threat in and of itself. And so, yes, Shavuot often can serve the needs and serve the desires of those who hate Jews, hate Judaism, and even hate Israel because of Israel's dominance in the fields of agriculture. It's another reason why agricultural terrorism is so popular within the land, because the Palestinian Arabs continue to violate the land. And we know that, like on Simchat Torah with October 7th, Jewish holidays are often an opportunity for the haters to express themselves. So as this holiday comes up, we are certainly wary. But then again, if you are aware of the news at all, then you know that there are attacks every single day against Jews all over the world. There is a young 14-year-old girl in Toronto who is believed to have been kidnapped. There are so many instances that now it is clear the world has given a green light to the spread of anti-Semitism after October 7th, and they do not need a holiday to celebrate it anymore, to use it as its cause. It is now every single day.
Yet we've also seen in Golders Green, there's been another attack on somebody in Golders Green as well.
If you look at what's happening in London, you are talking about stabbings in broad daylight, open in the streets, with people who were absolute witnesses and who did nothing. Yeah. Nothing. And when we think of poor Irina Zeruska, in the United States, and she was murdered on a bus, and 5 people sitting around her watched it happen, watched her bleed out, did nothing. Look at the world that we are living in. It is a dangerous, dangerous world of growing evil. And to be honest, it is that growing evil that is also causing more hatred against the Jews, more resentment, but not only against the Jews. The whole world is in an upheaval. We've just had an attack on an Islamic center, and we're going to start seeing these wars, these cultural, social, and yes, spiritual wars. We are going to see them continuing and growing, and more people are going to feel a great concern about what do we do. Before it's too late, we all have to be doing something.
Does the devil want to steal the promises of God from the Jewish people? We see this whole narrative now of Palestine, and the reality is Palestinians have never had a Palestinian state, yet God promised the land of Israel or the land of Canaan to the Jewish people. Is this the devil trying to whisper out to the whole world and say, look what the Jews are doing, when in reality you have more rights to the land than anybody else?
Absolutely, and I'm so grateful for everyone who does see that truth, because it is these truths that must be known by more people. That is the only way to defeat the world of lies and propaganda that has taken over all of the streets of public opinion and the streams of social media. Yes, I absolutely do believe that we are in this battle of good and evil. I believe that there are many temptations that are being brought to human race, increasingly romanticizing evil as if it is good. And we know that through the Bible, we see that this happens again and again, how Satan manifests himself as the antithesis to the good of God, to the holiness of God. I think, though, that there is a certain element of this battle we're fighting where it isn't just the devil, it is those who have recreated ideologies surrounding similar devil worship behaviors and practices of ancient times, but they have reframed them and rebranded them into such, shall we say, sexy movements that they are the most dangerous of the enticing techniques that are being used. It makes people feel welcome and wanted, and that the destruction of the Jew, the destruction of Israel, is actually for the good of the world. They have been brainwashed to believe this. And some will tell you, don't bother with the brainwash. There's nothing that can be done to save them. But I don't believe that we can just, ignore this continued spread of these demonizing ideals. And we need to be careful about our youth, the youth of the future, some of the people who are right now being very influenced by extremist views from the far left and from the far right alike. And those youth are going to be the leaders of our future. So if we look at the dangers that we're in, some of the people who are creating this dynamic of evil, the Hamas, Hamas in Hebrew means evil. And so it's a dynamic of evil that's taken over the world. They were, when I was in college 30 years ago, they were in school with me. And the videos we see about children in Gaza being trained from kindergarten how to stab or slit the throat of a Jew, those people are now in leadership positions. They are heads of companies. They are on governmental bodies. They are in educational systems. And so, we have to be very realistic about how the kind of anti-Semitism we're witnessing today, what is its impact also going to be in another generation when the youth who are hearing it become the leaders of tomorrow, and they continue to spread these terrible ideologies that continue to demonize the Jew, delegitimize the Jewish ancestral homeland and our indigenous rights. It's so important that people know the truth and are able to speak it eloquently and clearly with confidence, because Israel's truth is greater than any lie, but their lies spread faster than lightning. They have the money, they have the numbers, things that the Jewish people don't have without our non-Jewish allies. So the non-Jewish friends of Israel and friends of the Jews become even more essential as the righteous among the nations. And we hope that each one of you would become one of those who will be a part of saving the world.
If the world began to live life by the Ten Commandments, do you think we would see the eradication of anti-Semitism today if people turned to the Bible?
I think if people turned to the Bible, they would automatically be able to diminish some of their false beliefs about Jews. If they turned to Jewish prayer, even more so. People don't realize just how much the Psalms that are read in, and other prayers that are read in churches, they actually originate from Jewish prayer. That beautiful love of your friend and family and neighbor, that beautiful element of hope and communal responsibility for our fellow man, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. These are all fundamental values of the Jewish people. If the entirety of humanity were to accept those values, do we have any assurance that hatred of Jews would not arise? No. In my fearful opinion, I'd have to say they'll always invent some reason to hate the Jews. That's what it feels like when you are a historian who has just researched endlessly not only the continued attacks on Jews, but also the Jewish response and the response of the non-Jewish societies to those attacks, because the cycle keeps repeating itself. I think that in order to eradicate the concept of anti-Semitism, which is only one version, of hatred against Jews, you have Judeophobia, which is this fear that the Jew is a threat to you, they're going to kidnap your children and steal your wife, and all of those kinds of fears. You have the jealousy element. Jews are successful. Jews pursue good and accomplish great things in the world, and so therefore we are resented for it. And that success is used again as tools against us, lies against us. But I think also you have to take into consideration not only the anti-Semitism, which began as this racial hatred, but that it be transformed today. It's an anti-Zionism where they're trying to drive a wedge between the Jewish people, those who are, card-carrying Zionists, so to speak, and those who are not. And they're trying to weaken the Jewish nation by dividing us and creating this new type of hatred that we're calling today anti-Zionism. At the end of the day, it is Jew hatred. And at the end of the day, the only thing that can counter that hatred would be respect, not tolerance, but respect. Respect for the Torah, respect for Jewish faith, respect for Jewish practice, and respect for Jewish communal life. Those elements are the only things that diminish the power of hatred against Jews. And the more people realize it and the more people can try to experience it rather than believing the lies that they're told, then perhaps we could achieve world peace. You know, of course, that President Trump launched a program trying to encourage even the non-Jews in America in honor of 250 years of Jewish life in America to keep Shabbat, to honor Shabbat. And on one hand, it is a beautiful gesture. On the other hand, it kind of minimizes the power and the importance of Shabbat as it is expressed by Jews, as it is lived by those of us who do keep Shabbat and keep the Torah and make sure that there is Torah study in our life every day and that we pray every day. And even for the Jew who doesn't pray every day, there is a certain amount of disrespect given to the uniqueness, the particularity of Jewish faith and practice that if it was more respected, and I think that that's what Trump was trying to achieve, have greater respect for Shabbat, because don't forget, that is part of the Torah as well, and thou shalt keep the Shabbat, keep and remember the holy Shabbat. But at the end of the day, it also says, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet, and I am the Lord your God. So when we look at the entirety of the Ten Commandments, we wonder, is humanity capable of keeping it? As many Jews will tell you, non-Jews would not be able to live all of these laws because it's something that we take upon us to do, na'aseh, and nishma, that we will hear. It's an ongoing experience. So I hope that learning about the holidays with you, as you continue to share with your listeners around the world, it's another way where we can diminish anti-Semitism and increase the type of respect that's needed to say, wow, Judaism is beautiful and Jews are a nation that we should be proud of and that we should honor rather than to diminish and demonize in such ugly ways that happens today.
Mm. Now, Shavuot is also the wheat harvest. Today we see nations turning against Israel. Are they going to reap a harvest themselves of destruction? Is that what we're seeing today in Iran as well?
That's a great question. I love your play on words there. Well done. So first of all, I want to make a note here because people have heard about our war now. I guess I should say our wars for the last 2.5 years that Israel has been forced into wars where we are forced to defend ourselves. Every single angle, every single front of this war is a defensive war. And, you know, in this battle, one of the fields has been the actual fields of agriculture, which were completely decimated on October 7th. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of acres, both in the south and in the north, from Hezbollah rockets. And by the way, these continue. For those of you who think that we are not still living in war, my northern friends are still under missile fire. They are still under threat of infiltration. So please remember them in your prayers. The farmers deserve our prayers as well. We forget sometimes what it takes to put a salad on the table, and what it takes to get our wheat, or for those of us who are gluten-free, the other grains that allow us to make the bread that we bless on our holidays, on Shabbat, such a fundamental part of our existence we take for granted. The agricultural harvest this year is minimal. It's limited. We are still trying to recover, and it's very difficult. So I throw that into our discussion only because we hope that on this Shavuot and every Shavuot, our farmers realize just how much we appreciate them. I'll share with you a little custom in the kibbutzim, which are most of them not religious. They actually take all the tractors and they cover them with Israeli flags. And then they have in the back the carriages, you know, the agalot, and they fill it with hay, and in America, they're called a big old hay ride. Mm-hmm. And in the kibbutzim, all the kids go on and they sing songs, and they're wearing flower headdresses, and they're bringing their baskets of fruit, and they are celebrating with gusto and singing songs. So that harvest is not just of our faith, but it is a harvest of what it means to be a people in our land. Because many of the 613 mitzvot can only be fulfilled inside the land of Israel. And so we continue to do that by harvesting the land, by making sure we let the land lie fallow every 7 years. For those of you who don't know, that's a practice in Jewish law, so that we show respect for our land. So the harvest of hate, however, unfortunately, I expect will also continue side by side. Just recently, in the last 2 weeks, they have restarted a trend from, I guess it was about 14, 15 years ago. They started sending kites that were fit with bombs. They were sending kites and they were sending balloons. And so many times children were injured when they found these balloons and they walked over to the balloon and a bomb. Many miracle stories of children who we are lucky were not killed because they approached these bomb balloons. And now we have the same with kites. It's that season. It's very hot. The fields are dry. I think that the haters, unfortunately, are not receiving their due punishment. I think that the world has popularized evil to such an extent that without a greater powerful voice amongst from the moderate to every other angle than those loving and embracing evil, we need to be working together. We need to be like the Jews on Mount Sinai. We need to say we are going to do it, and we are going to do it right. We're going to do it together. We're going to fight the hate. But unfortunately, we see that this is a harder battle than many people realize.
And of course, one of these kites, if it's on fire and it comes into an Israeli area, and let's say there's a vineyard there, for instance,
exactly,
it can destroy the whole vineyard, and that's a lot
of whole thing.
That's years and years of developing and growing the crop to get it right, and suddenly it's gone just by a terrorist attack.
That's right. Unfortunately, and around the world, they are not considering the arson terror as terror, but we have lost hundreds of thousands of dunam of not only agricultural land, but forests, and many communities have had to be evacuated from their homes because of major forests that we know were started by terrorists, because we have the security footage. We see that it's ignited. If you look at what happened with the California wildfires, we know for a fact that they were not wildfires, and we know for a fact that there is the video evidence of those having been ignited in 3 different locations simultaneously by certain looking individuals. We know that this was terror, but nobody wants to call it that. In Israel, it's a very different situation. We have to be very careful how it is assessed, and that cautiousness of Israel, unfortunately, sometimes leaves room in that space of time while we're checking every detail to make sure everything we share is absolute fact, and it's always backed up with evidence. And in the meantime, the lies get spread around the world. So people will deny the claim about the arson terror, just like they deny the claims about the Arabs attacking the Jews who live in Judea and Samaria, and they will only believe the lies of Israeli extremist youth. Certainly, there are extremists in every group, and they all must be held accountable, but we cannot claim that they are the majority. Whereas when it comes to the Gazan population, the exact opposite is true. We know that they're the majority. And as much as I have a love for all human life, if someone is being born and raised to murder, the only method is re-education of an entire population to make sure that they cannot continue to live this cult-like ideology of hate for the Jew, bloodthirst for the Jew. So that really has to be our hope, because it is not only about the land, it's about how we're teaching people to recognize terror in the land.
What is your prayer for Shavuot at this time? Is it mainly safety, because of what we've seen, particularly in the UK, and you've talked about?
I think that's a great question, because I think that the prayers for diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews right now we have so much that we share in common in all of our prayers for the safety of our state, for the safety of our soldiers, for the safety of our people, all of our children everywhere, all of humanity. Oseh shalom b'momav, that God should bring peace upon all of Israel and upon all of mankind. Every single Jewish prayer is based on that concept. I think, though, that my prayers are for the diaspora communities, that they should be kept safe, that the police officers who have to surround these synagogues, that they hold fast to their obligations, and that they are able to endure what we know, like in England and in New York, the accepted rioting outside of synagogues. It's just a terrible, terrible thing that these politicians are allowing and enabling this type of public anti-Semitism. It is outright calls for murder. They are calling for the genocide of Jews, and they're masking it under a catchphrase of Free Palestine, and they're claiming a genocide of Gazans, which we know has been proven wrong. There is no evidence because Israelis, Jews, this is never something that would align with those ideals of our Torah, of our faith in Hashem, our God. This is nothing of what Israel or Jews stand for, and that is essential for everyone to be always realizing and learning more about. I think that for Jews in Israel, there's a different prayer going on right now because of the most immediate news that's taking place when Trump was apparently with his finger on the trigger to restart the next launch against Iran, and at the last minute changed his mind, as we know Trump does. Unfortunately, everyone is anticipating, and it has been announced by some pretty big heads in various departments of the state, that we should anticipate something happening this weekend. So Israelis are living on a different level. We're in a ceasefire, but we know that there's always a threat. There are terror attacks, attempted terror attacks every day in Israel, every day, that people don't hear about. And none of them are justified. It doesn't matter how you feel about Bibi or this government or whatever. It doesn't matter. Terror attacks are not justified. And so we have to realize that the prayer for Israelis right now really is that we will continue to remain safe should missile fire begin again, that our people should be safe, that perhaps somewhere in the world, someone will wake up and start to open their eyes and see the threat that exists in front of us. And that threat is the extremist Islam and the Islamification of the entire world and the attempted caliphate that is growing, starting in big cities and small cities alike. And it is growing against all of us, Jew and non-Jew alike. And we must be aware. So my prayer for the Jewish people and for all is to open their eyes, see what's happening, and to find one thing every day that you could be doing, because we can all be doing more as we stop this spread of the devil's death. It is just a terrible, terrible, frightening reality. But I'm going to end on a positive note, which is that we cannot give hope. It says in the Bible several times, many times, so many times, that the Jews are brainwashed with it. Don't fear sudden threats. Do not fear sudden evil, because it will come. It says the same sentence again and again. Do not fear evil, because it will come. So if we take that Torah, that piece of Torah, and we say, okay, well, then we always have to be prepared. We have to be prepared security-wise. We have to have a strong spirit. We have to have strong faith. We need to be together as a community. We need to teach our children well. So let us all, my hope and my prayer is for everyone to find a glimmer of light through all of the darkness that is surrounding us these days.
What is your website for people who'd like to know more about the work that you do?
We at Israel Forever are welcoming all people from all around the world to join us at israelforever.org to be recognized as a virtual citizen of Israel. Join one of our many communities where you can feel engaged and empowered. You can receive unique resources that you can use, and you can find the inspiration that you need in the real life, because that's what we're all doing. We're trying to live in this very precarious time and continue to find the positivity and the hope that will get us through. So as my mentor, Elie Wiesel, always said, hope is like peace. It is a gift only we can give one another. And so we must give it to one another. This Shavuot runs right into Shabbat this week. Then we have all throughout the year more and more opportunities where we can bring peace to one another. So I wish you all a week of peace.
Well, Elana, thank you very much for sharing today, and we hope that you have a peaceful Shavuot.
Thank you so much. Chag Sameach.